class today is really designed around lasers and lights. And we get a lot of questions about lasers and lights. And, different people use different types. And so we're going to kind of maybe go through several different types of lasers and lights there are. We're going to start and talk a little bit about bulb-driven products. We're going to talk about the advancement in LED products. And then we're going to talk about laser diodes, laser diodes. So then there's quite a difference in technology. So we're going to kind of go through that. So this is going to be an open workshop. So ask a lot of questions. If you got it, and then we're going to, like I said, the most important thing is get your hands on the equipment in the back. So I'm going to go through a few power slides, a little bit about the LEDs and about lamps, about wavelengths, and then we're going to get some hands on. Okay? So, forensic light sources. A forensic light source is made up of a powerful light containing one or all the ultraviolet, visible, and infrared components in the electromagnetic spectrum. It then filters down or selects the light by individual color bands or wavelengths. Then enhance the visualization of evidence by light interaction techniques. So this is the electromagnetic spectrum. We start with shortwave UV. Does anybody have an FSIS camera? Does anybody do any shortwave photography? Excellent. Shortwave, we're starting to find a lot more evidence in shortwave with the FSIS camera in shortwave. And shortwave is somewhat dangerous. It's the UV light, so you got to make sure you're wearing corrective covering for your face because it will give you a sunburn. But there's a lot more evidence to be found in shortwave than we've ever been able to find before. So it's kind of new technology in shortwave UV. Then it goes from shortwave into longwave, which was 365. Did anybody have a black light as a kid? Black light buster? Okay. UV, 365. Then we move into the violet, into the visual spectrum, into the violet, the blue. Blue is your 450. We primarily look for biologicals with 450 lights, 450 nanometer. And then we go into the greens. Greens are primarily used for fluorescent of chemical dye stains, your DFOs, your rhodamins, your R6Gs. Kind of get a little bit more into that in a little bit. And we go into your yellows, orange, red, and infrared. Forensic light sources, how they're used in forensics. And Brian Darrell, who is one of the experts, he doesn't really like the word alternate light source. He doesn't believe in alternate light source. He's a complementary light source. So anything that we do with light sources really is a complement. It's not really an alternate. But to visualize different things, like I mentioned before, in forensics, in the green 532, and we have a green 532 laser, it's a coherent tracer. Is anybody familiar with the coherent tracer at all? Okay. The coherent tracer is a 532 green laser, and primarily what you're looking for with a green laser or in the 532 bandwidth is chemical treatment processes. Indane diode, DFO, rhodamin. Rhodamin, for an example, is used after fuming. After we fume in a cabinet, we then dip with rhodamin, we then hit it with a laser, a green 532, and then the fingerprints fluoresce. In 455, like I mentioned before, that's a 455 blue. We're looking for biologicals, also other chemical dye stains like Ardrox, RAM, Ray, and also fluorescent powders. And we're going to look at some of these today. And then 365, UV. And these are the primary things that we use in forensics. UV is 365. In 365, we're going to look for bruising, trace evidence, fibers, and some biologicals. So these are the three primary things that are used in forensics. Alternate light sources, or an ALS, enhances the visualization of evidence not readily apparent for the naked eye, facilitating collection, documentation, and processing of evidence. Fluorescence is the emission of light of a longer wavelength by a substance that has absorbed light of a shorter wavelength. We've mentioned several different types. One of the types is the bulbs or arc lamps. That's where it started, was with the bulb. But bulbs have some inherent problems. One of them is uncertain performance, or really you don't have a specific wavelength. What you have is a bulb with a filter. So you have leakage on the outside with light coming in. So it's not specific. There's no power meter on a lamp. When was the last time you know that your light bulb was getting ready to burn out? It doesn't really tell you when it's going to burn out, it just burns out, right? So we really don't have a power meter. So the lamps degrade or dim over time. I mentioned that shift with this bandwidth. Since we're just using a light with a filter, we have so much outside light coming in, it's not very specific. So it can leak 50 nanometers to either side. So although I might say I have a 450 light, if it's a bulb, it might leak 50 to the right, 50 to the left. So if it's 450, it's going to be 400 or maybe 500. So it's not very specific. When you're using those filters, they have a tendency to bleach over time. The heat from the lamp, from the bulb, will actually degrade filters. Bulbs get hot. If you're using a wood, anybody use a wood lamp? Anybody? There's one.
I'm an old guy, so I've used all that stuff.
Yeah, so you've used the wood lamp, right? Get hot, didn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So.
It's also, you gotta be careful.
Yeah, that was an arc lamp.
You burn your desk.
Yeah, you're right.
You set it down wrong.
That's exactly right. Hot. These bulbs are expensive to replace. If anybody's had to replace a bulb in a system like this before, they're very expensive, up around $2,000, $2,500 for a bulb. One of the other challenges was that these bulbs don't last very long. A bulb will last between 1,000 and 2,000 hours. So that's kind of where we started with alternate light sources, with bulbs. Has anybody got a bulb-driven product now for alternate light? You got one, don't you, Doc?
We still have one.
What do you have? An old Omnichrome or something, maybe? Yeah, the old Brofin? Yeah.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Yep. Mm-hmm. Then came along the LEDs, right? So the alternate light source LED is a light-emitting diode. LEDs had a greater life expectancy, somewhere around 25,000 to 50,000 hours. They're most often used in a single wavelength, since we can buy an LED that's pretty specific. However, still leaks to the right, still leaks to the left. Not precise. So in other words, if I say I've got a 450, it still leaks probably 10 or 15 nanometers to the right and to the left. And there's hot spots in your photography. If you've ever tried to use an LED light in your photography, it's really hard sometimes to get that hot spot out of it. We've got several of these lights in the back that you're going to get your hands on today and actually use them. We've got a 455, which is just a standard crime scene light a lot of folks carry. We've got a tri-light in the back that's got 3 wavelengths in it. It's got a 385, a 455, and a 530. So a UV, a 455 blue, and a green 530. And then we've got some Rofin Flare Plus 2s in the back. There's a series of Rofins. It's really a handheld, very powerful light source. It's got 8 LEDs nested in it. There's a series of those lights, and they come from and they're delivered from 365 all the way into infrared. We have some of the Rofin products back here in the back too. The evolution of forensic lasers. Did anybody work in a laboratory where you had an old forensic laser before? Wow. Which one did you have back there?
We had a copper vapor.
Wow. Okay, so you had to heat it up, you had to cool it down.
Yes.
That was early on, and so
30 minutes to get ready and about 45 minutes to shut down.
yeah. So ion lasers were developed back in the 70s, and they were big, large lasers, weighed over 700,000 pounds. Amount of them, and you couldn't move them, but they were used to find evidence, because people found, whoa, if we had a big, powerful laser, we could find more evidence. But they were very expensive, 200,000, 250,000. And the maintenance just to keep the things up was just crazy. So as time went by into the 80s, all of a sudden we went into solid state lasers. Well, we got them smaller. They weighed about 175, 200 pounds. They were still very expensive, still over $100,000. And then in the 2000s, the tracer laser came out from Coherent. Coherent is the largest manufacturer of tracers in the world. Still probably 90% of the forensic labs have a tracer laser. Very popular. 40 pounds, costs around $35,000, $40,000. Single wavelength green 532. And then today, with the advancement of the new Dual 77, we have a 5-pound laser, 7 watts of blue, 7 watts of green out of a 5-pound box, portable. It's around $22,000. So we're going to actually be able to see it today too. The tracer has a laser diode. It's an optically pumped semiconductor laser, 20 to 40 times more power than any kind of LED. It's a single wavelength, like I mentioned, it's 532. There's no leaking. So when I talked about these LEDs having this big bell curve with this outside light coming in, a laser diode straight up, straight down. That's where we generate so much power out of it. There is no leaking. So when it's 532, it's straight deep 532. As well as the dual 77. It's also a diode laser, straight peak lasers out of the pistols. There's another product in the industry from Brightbeam. They also have a dual laser that's 455, 520. Heavy, not near as portable as a smaller laser. So here's some comparison results, and you're going to be able to see this with your own eyes here in just a little bit, but I wanted to show a couple slides. So the first one is an ALS with a bulb of a latent print that's been treated. Then the second picture is the ALS with an LED and then with a laser. In certain cases, it's the difference between finding it and not. The same thing with the next set of photographs. You can barely see the latent print with a bulb, and then the detail with the laser. The one on the left was a corpse that was found. They made out some information on her hand with the LED, but with the laser, they could actually see the phone number, and they actually made an arrest from a suspect based upon the use of a laser. So it's amazing what can be found with lasers. Lasers are class 4 device. So it means we have to have proper safety goggles when we use one of them. These are not ALS goggles. There's a difference. There's optical density on it that's different from a ALS goggle to a laser goggle. So we'll be wearing laser goggles today when we use a laser. We've also got some alternate light source goggles when we use an alternate light source, if you'd like to put those on as well. But today we'll primarily just be using argon laser goggles, okay? It's important to also know that if we're using lasers, we have to capture that image. If we capture that image with our camera, we have to use an argon barrier filter. So we'll use an orange filter. If we're using orange filters on our eyes, we'll use an orange filter for our camera. We also have a new filter called an FF1 filter. Brian Dalrymple has done some studies with the FF1 filter. By stacking these two filters together, we've been able to find untreated prints on 15-year-old documents. When we use a laser, it's important to have a laser in use sign. So Pat's going to be back here at the door. Pat, you're going to tackle anybody who comes in. You're in charge of tackling them. Normally we would put a sign that says laser in use in here, but Pat's strong enough to tackle anybody up at the front. So as we move forward, what I'd like to do is kind of move everybody back to the back, if that's okay, and let's put some goggles on and let's do our hands-on workshop. Sound good? So when using a laser, a class 4 laser, we want to make sure we use the right barrier protection. So the right barrier protection is actually marked on it where it has 532. This is a 532 laser, so we'll block everything out of 532. This is a blocking filter. So this is an optical density 4 laser, where this is an ALS goggle. It doesn't have any marks or any coating on it at all. This would be used for an alternate light source, a bulb, or a LED-driven product, where this would be used for a diode laser. So we'll go right into the green. You just dial this right here into the green, 530, 415, 455. I think resistant green. This might be there. 555. Okay, here you go. 535. Okay, there you go. So there's going to be their green. Okay, so Mark's going to do a side-by-side with the green laser versus a bulb-based product.
Is it coming out? I guess it's... Okay, this is, what did you say, about 3 foot away?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then here's the laser.
Okay.
And the light source. Can you guys see this okay?
So I think one of the,
Back to laser.
so this one right here, which is your paper and
Paper
DFO.
Mhm.
Okay, we can hardly see anything. Now switch it.